got to start with Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback at Texas Tech. I got to start here. It's just too important to college athletics. It's too important to athletics. I'm going to get to Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson, and going to have a big part of my crew, Shemeka, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Dre. Who am I forgetting? Gonna have them talk about Delano. Gonna have them talk about Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson. But I got to start with this Brendan Sorsby deal. This gambling thing that we've injected, this casino-like environment culture that we have injected into college sports. It's a problem. Brendan Sorsby is casino. You remember Sam Rothstein in Casino? That's Brendan Sorsby. He's got a gambling Jones. He's Sam Rothstein. He's a quarterback for Texas Tech. He was at Indiana University before transferring out. He's got a clear gambling problem. He has now left the Texas Tech program to go into gambling rehab. There are allegations that he was betting on games, teams he played, that he was a member of. Texas Tech, I think, invested like $6 million in Brendan Sorsby to be their quarterback next year. Remember, Texas Tech has this billionaire backer that basically finances the Texas Tech football team. Well, now that this kid is going into rehab, and now that it's obvious he has this severe gambling problem, it seems unlikely to me that he would be allowed to play this year. A gambling addict with stories that he's bet on teams that he's been a member of, how do you let him onto the field this coming season? So Texas Tech season has been destroyed. This points to the chaos in college athletics because of the transfer portal and because of name, image, and likeness. Remember how paying the players was actually going to solve all kinds of problems and make things better? Well, it actually makes things more complicated for the players. Kids, athletes, aren't supposed to be instant millionaires at 17, 18, 19, and 20. It's just not the way it's supposed to be. I'm damn near 60, and it's hard for me to have discipline with money. And obviously I have more than Brendan Sorsby and a lot of kids, but money is a test, a really hard test that most people flunk with flying colors. And we shouldn't be surprised that these college kids are flunking the test. They're buying houses, not a bad thing, but turning those houses into frat houses, into strip clubs, into casinos. My parents maybe once a month would send me $100 in college. Maybe both. My parents are divorced. Maybe I get $100 out of both of them in a month. You know what I did with that money? We shot craps. We gambled amongst ourselves, teammates. And again, it wasn't all of us, but it was a high enough percentage of us. We were idiots. And if we weren't blowing our money on gambling, we were blowing it on alcohol, weed, clothes we didn't really need, women, whatever. Young people blow money. And so this kid, making plenty of money in NIL, it feeds his gambling addiction. And why wouldn't it? All of America has gone all in on gambling. There's nothing wrong with gambling. Look, I'm part of the problem. I'm pleading guilty. I've told you all on this show, I come from a gambling family. It's what we did and do. Grandfather, numbers guy in Indianapolis. Uncle, numbers guy in Indianapolis. My father, one of the great gamblers in Indianapolis. My mother loved to gamble. My auntie love to gamble. Everybody I knew. It's a problem. It's not a solution for anything. It's a problem. And yes, it makes the games more fun. And it's harmless. And so what? Brendan Sorsby can't handle it. That's a him problem. No, it's an us problem. And it doesn't enhance the integrity. It harms the integrity of college sports, harms the integrity of professional sports. This is insanity, what we're doing. And yes, Prize Picks and other gambling companies have been sponsors of this show. But the results, the facts are in. Gambling is a problem, and it's much bigger than just Brendan Sorsby. We're watching NBA players, Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, these guys, Damon Jones, these guys are going to prison. That's just the tiniest tip of the iceberg as it relates to sports. And if they ever look into college sports, doesn't matter how many. Hey, you pay a kid $1 million a year, he wants to turn it into $2 million. And some of these kids are either going to use gambling to do it. Some of them will appropriately say, like, let me put this money in the stock market. And then some of them will say, hey, let me deal a little dope or finance dope dealing back in my hometown or on the college campus, and let me flip my money that way. And look, there's probably 40, 50% of the kids that will do nothing wrong. 30% of the kids that will do nothing wrong with that money. Take it, use it to help themselves get through college, invest some of the money, spend it appropriately. But kids are going to be kids. And they're going to do stupid things. I know how stupid I was. I know how stupid I am. So we shouldn't be surprised that Texas Tech's season has potentially been wrecked. Brendan Sorsby's college football career, I think they thought this kid was a first-round pick. How does the NFL bring someone with a admitted or reported gambling addiction problem into the National Football League? There was a time, and I'm going to date myself, but it's not that I was around, but it's just the fact that I even know. Like NFL stars, Paul Hornung, these guys got in trouble. Alex Karras got in trouble for gambling. This used to be the most forbidden thing in all of sports. You ever heard of Shoeless Joe Jackson? That's baseball. But we used to try to keep gambling out of sports. Now we've made gambling sports partner. The advertisement, the sponsorship dollars from the gambling companies are flowing everywhere throughout professional and college sports. I saw something this morning from Warren Buffett, multi-billionaire, one of the smartest financial minds in America. I think he was on CNBC, and he was talking about gambling and who it really impacts and who it really helps. Play the clip.
I don't think you can stop it once you open it up. And once the states found out that they could pay about 60 cents on the dollar or something like that, whatever, they may have different systems for different states. There was one state it was legal in when I was a kid. And we've been around for hundreds of years, but then once people saw how that was working, other places took it up. And of course, rich people love it because they don't have to pay. I mean, you know, to the extent that the states raise money from people who the dollar really means something to them, actually relieves the taxes on me or other rich people. I mean, it's not direct, but it's the net effect. So I don't like things that make a sucker out of people.
Yeah.
I don't like them. I particularly don't like them when the government sponsors them. I don't think the government should play its. I don't think the function of the government is to play its people for suckers.
Yeah. My dad has always said the lottery is a tax on the stupid. Gambling, same thing.
It's a tax. Yeah, it's a tax on stupidity.
what he's talking about there, like the gambling companies come in, FanDuel, DraftKings, and then the states tax FanDuel and DraftKings. And so they can raise billions of dollars from the success of FanDuel, DraftKings, and all the other gambling companies. Not to pick on FanDuel or DraftKings, but those are the biggest brands. But the states can tax them while they tax the poor. Because what Warren Buffett is explaining, which is factual, is the people that can afford to gamble, the least, gamble the most. And so the gambling companies reach into poor people's pockets, and then the state comes in and reaches into the gambling company's pocket. But the source of the majority of the money is from poor people. It's just the state reaching into poor people's pockets, and Warren Buffett is explaining to you that the wealthy people actually know this. And they know that, well, the state can get their money from the poor through gambling, the state lotteries, again, the taxes, the whatever the gambling companies have to pay the state. The wealthy know, hey, man, let them keep getting billions of dollars from poor people through gambling. That means they'll tax me less because they'll be less in need of my money. And the woman host there is like, and it's medicine for people like me that know but need to be reminded. Like, gambling is for idiots. For idiots. And I've cut down my gambling quite a bit. Pretty much the last 6 months or 5 months, I've just pretty much eliminated it. But I need to sustain that, and so do you. It's ruining sports. It's hurting the poor. It's creating horrible habits. It's reducing the integrity of any and everything that we're watching on sports. You can basically gamble on anything at this point. Wanted to get that off my chest, start the show there. Steve Kim and I will talk about this in about 45 minutes, an hour or so. He'll be on at the back end of the show, and we got a bunch of topics Steve Kim and I will get into. But we're going to segue into a conversation about Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson. They have broken up, the rapper, the NBA star. It's all over the internet. It's a fascinating conversation about celebrity relationships, black people's obsession with celebrity relationships, the dynamics between black men and black women. It's fascinating. We'll have that discussion here. Before we get to them, though, I want to tell you guys that are listening over Apple and Spotify, make sure you hit that 5-star rating. It helps us fight the algorithm. It's important. The other thing I want to remind you all, PreBorn, our sponsor. We love PreBorn because PreBorn supports our worldview that life begins at conception. They support that worldview by providing expectant mothers who are considering abortion. They provide them an ultrasound. When the mother hears that baby's heartbeat, sees an image of that baby in the womb, she is now twice as likely to choose life. And that's when PreBorn really steps in and steps up and will support that mother and child for up to 2 years. PreBorn is an amazing organization. Each ultrasound costs $28. Our donations to PreBorn, this is our part of this deal, pays for ultrasounds. 5 ultrasounds cost $140. Whatever your best gift is, whether it's $28, whether it's $140, whether it's $14,000, I implore you, make that gift today. It's a great feeling to know that you're in the fight, you're saving babies' lives. It puts a smile on God's face when you save a baby's life or participate in the saving of a baby's life. Do it today. 2 ways to give: preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless, or dial #250 and say the keyword baby. When we come back, we'll lighten up a bit, although it is somewhat of a serious topic. we'll lighten up a bit and talk about Megan the Horse and Klay Thompson splitting up. And we'll do that with my cast of characters here. X! Steve Kerr is such a far leftist that Steve Kerr might be pro-Palestine. And I think Joe Lacob, the owner of the Golden State Warriors, he's not pro-Palestine. So perhaps Steve Kerr is positioning himself for a political run. And Steve, here's the advice I would give you.
But listen up now, this is serious.
Tell the left, and particularly the athletic left, the professional athlete left, tell them to grow a pair, be somewhat consistent. The silence over the consistent violence directed toward President Trump is really annoying and exposes you and all of these athletes as hypocrites.
Not only are you a hot dog, a grandstander, a showboat, and a prima donna, but you're a liar too.
You're not anti-violence as long as it's directed at President Trump and people you disagree with. You're hypocrites. You're leftists. You're Marxists. You believe in violence directed at the right American targets. Maybe Steve Kerr and Stephen A. Smith can pair up, and that will be the tandem running for president. A woke libtard and a retard.
Klay is broke. Klay is a joke. Klay lost the game. Klay has no fame. Klay has no hoes. Klay has no goals. Klay has to cough. Can't find a hall. Klay wants to shoot. Can't find the ball. Megan is joyful. Megan is free. Megan is outside, twerking on one knee. Megan is happy. Megan is rich. Megan has met another man who's not a bitch. Megan, it's me, your spiritual advisor. If I get an even number, Klay's going bald tonight. Bald tonight. Bald tonight. Bald tonight. Bam! Megan, he's going bald. If I get an odd number, $100 million billion is gonna come to you tonight. I see good things in your future, Megan. I see good things in your future. A new, better man, woman, or person. Give me an even. Give me even. Megan, better things are coming soon. Better things are coming soon.
So that was a video of a woman basically kind of holding a seance, and she's turning over playing cards. I don't know, having these visions of what's going to happen to Klay Thompson and Megan Thee Stallion. This thing is crazy. And for those of you that, again, are only listening and you couldn't see the video, it's like she's not in front of a Ouija board, but she's in front of candles, and it's kind of like a seance or whatever. But the worship of Megan Thee Stallion by a certain group of either social media obsessed people, or maybe it's a bit more widespread. But anyway, Klay and Megan are breaking up. Megan has taken to the internet and said that Klay cheated on her. It seems to be a big deal. But I'm going to bring on this group of wise counsel, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Shemeka Michelle, Delano Squires, Dre Baldwin. And I want to advise you all, you can talk amongst yourself. Don't always wait for me to invite you into the conversation. If you got something you want to say, jump in, and hopefully people will quiet down. If you disagree with somebody, jump in. I don't have to pass you the ball after I start the conversation. And Shemeka, I'm going to go ladies first here. Are we maybe caught up too much in social media and think this is a bigger deal because we're over social media? Or is there a lot of interest from black women in what's going on with Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson?
I maybe would say there's a lot of interest simply because I think black women are nuts. I think women are nuts, period. And unless you recognize that and work to change it, then you just go about your day being nuts and you have no idea that you are. I have seen so many people talk about this as if they are missing a night, missing nights of sleep or they missed meals. And I just think it's so ridiculous. I've seen multiple posts about women getting their own man back because they're standing up for Megan Thee Stallion. And I just think it's ridiculous, but it shows exactly where we are, or at least where the culture is, that everybody likes to talk about the culture, the culture, the culture. It shows you where the culture is. Just slow motions, and it's crazy.
Anybody want to chime in? Big deal, little deal, exaggerated deal?
Overblown deal, Jason. And it is something that we're talking about because it's interesting and people on social media are debating it. But if we really elevate this conversation and really think about it, the debate around who, quote unquote, won the relationship between the two of these is about sexual marketplace thinking. And the sexual marketplace is about transactional dating, which is not what will elevate the black community or any community when it's just about who got the most out of a relationship, who can replace who faster. That's not what is going to build up any community if we're talking about serious growth of young men and young women. But because so many people idolize these athletes and entertainers, now you have black men and black women, I guess you can call it picking sides as to who won in this relationship. It's kind of ridiculous. It's also funny, but it's also interesting.
Boyce, I think you may have been muted when you were trying to talk earlier. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I switched my microphone. You guys can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah. I agree what the sister said about the craziness that does exist, and I think it's important to say that not all women are crazy, but crazy women tend to be the loudest, and really society is a little bit crazy, right? There's the internet reality where people are just talking shit online, and then there's like real life, right? And the idea that the extremists represent everyone else, we know that that's a falsehood, right? There's a lot of stereotypes about black men and black women that we know are completely untrue, but that's what gets the most attention. But I will say, though, that there is something disturbing about this idea that Megan Thee Stallion, who unfortunately has heavily marketed herself as adjacent to really sex trafficking, that represents the common experience of the black woman in America. And that somehow marketing yourself in that way, where you done had all these public relationships with these nasty ass rappers, and you've also really like publicly talked about what you do in the bedroom. The missing father is a factor because it's your dad that tells you, hey, you don't market all that. You don't tell everybody what you're doing. Your lady in the street, freak in the bed, that type of thing. And then they get confused because they think they can be a freak in the street and then still get treated like the wife. And unfortunately, that fairy tale just doesn't come true.
Delano, I'm going to let you hop in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a big deal in the grand scheme of things. I think obviously anything that happens on social media feels like a big deal to people who spend a lot of time on social media. But for me, the bigger issue is not these two, 1% people, right? So the vast majority of men are not over 6'5". They don't make $40 million a year. They don't play in a professional, they don't play a professional sport. And the vast majority of women are not multimillionaires in their own right who have, obviously high name recognition. What I think is the bigger issue is how this particular split continues a decades-long cycle of sowing discord between black men and black women. And part of the reason that concerns me is because you can't build strong families. You can't build a culture of marriage and strong families in any community where the default is discord between men and women. So that to me is the bigger thing. And I think both of these individuals represent two archetypes of what is wrong in the relationship marketplace, right? So you have, I'll start with Klay first because I tend to start with men first because I am a man. But if the working assumption is that a man of a particular income should not be expected to be faithful to his wife, let me use specific terms, his wife, then you're not going to be able to present a compelling case for women to sign up for marriage, right? It's one thing to say you get married, things happen, whatever those things are, and it's just we go through a rough season and we work to a place of togetherness, oneness from a single instance of infidelity. But if you go into it telling women, well, look, he makes six figures, right? Because whatever that mark is ultimately going to get lower and lower. He's a high value man, so you shouldn't expect fidelity from him. I wouldn't sign my daughter up for that deal. On the flip side, if you have a woman who markets herself as sexually promiscuous and or generally disagreeable, guys are not going to sign up for that deal. So if it's if you really want a real baddie, you should be expect to be disrespected. I'm not signing my sons up for that deal. So I see these two people as representing the worst archetypes possible if you want a culture of strong marriages and strong families, and that to me is the biggest takeaway from the entire situation.
Even if it's
that was a good point. Yeah, when I picked my wife, I was not looking for a baddie. I wasn't looking. My wife. When I met her years ago, I would have to admit I was a little intimidated because she would get hit on by a lot of athletes. I'm talking about guys 6'6", 200 something pounds, $1 million in the bank, and I just thought that was the preference for a lot of women. And what drove her decision making actually was her father. Her father was a college professor, and I happened to be a college professor, so I got lucky. And I think that what we really see in the community when you see this chaos with relationships is you see the broken family really showing itself in every way. You have a fatherless society. If you read Megan's backstory, which I read in detail, it was very chaotic. There was no father there to kind of guide the decision making. And there's a lot of pain that comes with that. And so I feel really bad for little girls that end up, because society will feed you a fantasy and then reality slaps you in the face, and all you can do is cry about it. And again, I'm not here to say that I know this relationship in particular, but this was symptomatic, in my view, of a bigger issue because so many people related to her pain. And then obviously society says, well, blame the man. It's the men. It's the men. It's the men. No, there's something that's been done to our community that we have to fix because ain't nobody else gonna fix it. But we have to fix it. So I like talking to individuals like the ones that are here, because you all come with solutions, and I think that's what we need.
Well, one thing I don't think we should be in denial of, and I'm not suggesting that we are, but they do have an influence, and they can influence young people into what thinking success, what you should do, normal behavior. Hey, if you're successful as a man and you're an athlete, you should have a bunch of women. If you're a successful female rapper, you should have a bunch of men and women, is basically the messaging from Megan Thee Stallion and many of these rappers from Sexy Red on. They are, whether or not this is overblown or not, I don't think, and Shemeka, I'll drop this in here, I don't think their influence is being exaggerated because I think a lot of kids get in. I know when I was a kid, I was influenced by the athletes, and I know when I was a young adult, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm going to tell one last story here. I can remember when I moved, not moved, but when I first started going to L.A., and when I first started having significant, I was making super high six figures, and I can remember listening to Jamie Foxx on his Jamie Foxx radio show, and he was telling a story about a trip he took to Las Vegas with 2 escorts. And I can remember going, man, Jamie Foxx is just out here talking about he went to Vegas with these 2 girls that were blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's what you do when you're rich and famous. And I'm telling you, I had to be in my early 30s, mid-30s at this point, and I can remember thinking like, oh, okay, yeah. This is the thing to do when you get money. Go, and so I know it's influencing kids because I know it's influencing young men. Shemeka?
Yeah, I think the problem is not even just the thought of this is what I have to do when I get rich and famous. We have people walking around in a $20 sew-in thinking I have made it now. I have a big butt. I am this. This is the way that I have to live. You have people right here in the projects who think they're living some sort of rich and famous life, especially because of the way social media can portray anything. These young people don't they're not able to differentiate. So it's not even just that there's this thought, this is what I do when I get rich and famous. We have young girls out here thinking, this is what I do when I have a nice body. They're considering themselves baddies now with wigs and weaves and fingernails. And they actually do look at these celebrities and sometimes think we are in the same category. It would go completely over their heads hearing us say the elite or the 1%. They would think, what do you mean? I am Megan Thee Stallion. I am her. Maybe I don't have the top hits, but I see myself in her because I have a nice body. I have, I can buy hair and I can get men. So a lot of these young girls do see themselves as Meg the Stallion. So I think you're right. The influence, it can be very huge, especially when you don't have any guardrails in your life. As Boyce would say, the father and a mother to just say, no, baby, you're not her. And we don't have that in the community.
Several things at play I notice here, Jason, that should be pointed out. First of all, is that this whole conversation and the debate on social media is based on one Instagram post by Megan Thee Stallion. I haven't heard Klay Thompson say anything. He didn't actually admit to cheating. She accused him supposedly of cheating, but he hasn't said a word. That should be on the record. Secondly, with the things that you've heard men and women saying online, I think when young men are growing up, and this was true back in the 90s, and I think is even more true now, they're growing up and they say, well, I will become the Klay Thompson, either an athlete or a rapper, and make a whole bunch of money, and then I can live the way that you would get, let's say, an Andrew Tate, who some of his material I actually like. Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, some of his material I liked. What they talked about, when a man is high value, you can move around and do as you wish, and you don't have to be faithful to one woman. And that's what they preach. And they would explain it very articulately. And a lot of men, whether they live to become that, which most of them don't, and if they don't, once they become young adults and grown adults, these men between 20 and 50, what I notice is that they live vicariously through these athletes and entertainers. So I see a lot of men defending what Klay Thompson did by saying, well, he's high value because he makes this amount of money, so he can do whatever he wants to do. And then Megan Thee Stallion, well, she doesn't need a man because she has all this money and she can just get rid of him and she can go get another man. And this is what a lot of people are thinking is the ideal. Even if they can't live it, they're saying this is the ideal. So whatever I have, maybe I'm not there. Maybe I'll never get there, but they see this as this is the best way to live. And this is what's happening in our community. And as Dr. Boyce said, as Delano said, you can't build a community without man, woman, child at home. And if these are the people who are being looked up to because they are the most visible, they are high profile. I don't think either one of these people is high value for the record, but they are high profile. And when high profile people are seen all the time, people think that's what I need to be. So that's one of the biggest issues that's happening here.
Oof. Man, that was powerful, Dre. I love what you said. I mean, it's so unfortunate. I mean, you look at the big picture of America. A lot of people don't know that we're in the middle of the beginning of a massive retirement crisis, where most people are not prepared to retire. Most people don't have any money saved in the bank. And why do I bring that up? I bring that up because we live in a society that's built on instant gratification and not long-term preparation, right? You have young men who think they're going to be young forever. You have young women that think they're going to be young and cute forever. And they can't imagine themselves as a 65-year-old with cancer who needs somebody to take him to the doctor, or an old man who needs his children to come visit him in the nursing home to make sure he gets his medication. They think, okay, if I can go through my life, live easy free, never commit to anyone or anything other than myself, have sex with 10 million people. Like I heard the other day, I heard Ray J on a show say that with Cam Newton, where he said he had sex with 11,000 women. Right there means they need to call the CDC because you are a public health risk, sir. If somebody said I had COVID and I kissed 11,000 people, they would arrest your ass, right? But somehow we just gloss over this, right? and that's insanity to me. And so you do have that culture where the instant gratification is chased by everybody, and I think, okay, I'm young and free, and I have money, and I can do what I want. And then next thing you know, you get older, and you look back and you realize you haven't accumulated anything. The example earlier was with money. You see how broke people are because they don't accumulate wealth. Well, another type of wealth they don't accumulate is family. They don't value family. We have women that are black women on a large scale, and white women too, that are literally taught that it is a benefit to you to abort your own seed, to kill your own bloodline. That is shocking to me, right? So ultimately, this is where folks like yourselves, I think, are very important, because I think it is important that we have another side to that conversation, because it leads to a lot of suffering, and that's unfortunate. That's very sad to me.
Yeah, and to pick up on what Dr. Watkins said just now, we've all known individuals, right, who may have gone through life, not gotten married, and not had children, but that's not the norm, and that's becoming the norm, sort of on a societal level, and the idea that as you get older, you're not going to need people who care about you, who are concerned with you, and particularly for men, right? As men get older, it's going to be your wife and your kids that check in with you, make sure you're going to see the doctor, make sure you're taking your blood pressure medication, all of those things. So this notion that, okay, I can live free and wild and do what I want, sure, that may sound appealing in your 20s, but when you get 70, Lord willing, like you're going to have a completely different life. The same thing with women. Okay, it's cool. You got more stamps in your passport than the post office. Okay, that sounds nice. But how are you going to feel when you're 75, right? Or even when you're 65? Because what I've seen from experience, and obviously this is anecdotal, is that of all my accomplishments in life, right? I tell my mom, oh, look, Mom, I got this degree and I did this. Nothing has surpassed giving my mother 4 grandchildren, right? Now, it started when I got married. And I said, okay, I had to take a slight demotion. And then when the grandkids started to come, everything changed. So when you're able to provide your parents with those gifts of grandchildren so that you can have 2 generations that interact with one another, that's a different level of wealth. And the one thing about this situation that I think is a positive is that Klay Thompson and Megan Thee Stallion, at least to our knowledge at this point, let's check back in 9 months, did not bring any children into the world, because that's the thing that I'm most worried about. And the reason that Jason, obviously, that I'm writing this book, right, The Vanishing Black Family, is because I'm concerned about the future of black children. If men and women want to do foolishness in their relationships, then we're going to pay the cost. But we shouldn't impose that cost on the next generation of children. And Jason, I don't know if you saw this clip, and not to get off topic, but I think it's related. A clip of Le'Veon Bell, former running back from the Pittsburgh Steelers, talking to some guy, and the guy said, "But man, you got 7 kids by 6 different women." And Le'Veon Bell said, "Yeah, man, my 30s, I was doing my thing." Then the guy said, "Well, name all 7 of them." And he said, "Man, you think I can't name my 7 kids?" And then he got to 5, he got stuck, and then he said, "Oh, I forgot one of them." And the clip ended with him naming 6 of his 7 children. And then he went on in a different clip to say that Future, the rapper, is now messing with one of his baby mamas. And this has become part and parcel of our culture, and has been for at least the last 30 years. And as I said, if the adults want to do stupid things, then you're going to have to pay the cost. But again, my concern is always that we are imposing these costs on children because of the irresponsibility of adults.
Also, too, when you say that we don't normalize the family anymore, it's normal to not be with the family. When you talk about adults doing stupid things, there's so many adults now who have experienced hurt, or they're bitter for whatever reason. They're pushing this on the children, not even just their children. Every time they open their mouths, they're saying something ignorant. I was just on a podcast recently where I was the youngest woman, And I do feel like I got pushback for talking about the traditional family, and that the traditional family, God's design, is the way that it should be. I got all of these excuses about, well, what about when the mother and the father, they don't get along? Sometimes that house is worse. And I'm saying, yes, but you guys are trying to make the exceptions the rule, and that's not the rule. I turned out fine. But, or, I still have some things that I'm working through because I didn't have a father. But generally, most people would say I turned out fine. That's not the rule, however. And I do believe that I could have been in a better, situation, or things that I did in my younger years, I wouldn't have done had I had that father to give me those guardrails. And so we have so many older women now who just won't even say, hey, the things I did in my past were mistakes. Yes, I made it through, but that may not be your story, young lady. The best thing for you to do is to get married before you have children, build a family. We're not telling people that. And you have women 50, look at Nia Long, just sitting there laughing with Keke Palmer about having a sneaky link. That's not even what you want, because the man you were engaged to had a sneaky link and you were mad. So let's just stop saying silly things, and it's time to grow up and actually have some wisdom and put back into the younger people. But that's not what's happening.
Shemeka, I'm gonna pick up from that point and look, I think young people get bad advice, both genders. But one of the worst things I think we tell young women, and we've been telling them for 60 years, is like, and you guys are parents, and so you guys can all speak to this. I'm raising you so you won't need a man. I'm preparing my daughter so that she won't need a man. I think I just saw Angel Reese talk about how her mother raised her, that she wasn't going to need a man. And I'm like, wow, that's a poison. I get the mentality. That's been going on for 60 years. But fathers and mothers need to be raising their daughters so that they will be able to discern the right man, look for, attract, and be in position to attract the right man who will be worthy of her undying, unconditional love, blah, blah, blah. But we're actually raising women not to need men, and then we're shocked when they say, I don't need a man.
No, I got a story related to that, Jason. If you'll allow me for 1 second. I talked to an older woman one time, and she's about 80 years old. She was born in the 1940s. And I said, tell me about your household growing up. And she said that her father, she had 3 sisters, and her father was an alcoholic. And he would come home and he would just beat everybody's ass. He would beat their mother, beat the kids, whatever. Alcohol's quite a demon in that way. And she said he hung himself when she was 16. And I said, that must have been terrible to lose your father at the age of 16. I said, how did that feel? And she said, actually, I was relieved, because I knew that there would be no more beatings and he wouldn't cause the chaos that he was causing. And so as a result of that, this woman and none of her sisters actually, one of them got married. She didn't stay married, and the other sisters never got married at all. And the result of that, unfortunately, was, a very unhealthy sort of shift all the way to the other direction, to the other extreme of a deep seated commitment to independence because of that fear that was driven in them when they were children. And what happened in terms of how she was able to not pass the generational curse on to her daughter was she didn't tell her daughter, you don't need a man. She told her daughter that if you have a good man, you do need him, but you're going to be okay regardless. You want to be secure so that you're going to be okay in case that man walks away. I think that's an appropriate message. But I will say, and without a doubt, I need my wife. I love that lady. But if you think I'm gonna fall down and die because she chose to walk away, the answer is no. And I think that that's okay for women to feel that way. But to simply flat out say, I don't need a man, I don't need a man, what that can also do too is if you're a man and you're sitting there, commitment, I'm sorry, I will just speak on myself. Maybe I'm screwed up in a certain way, but in my 30s, monogamy was a hard commitment for me to make at 32 years old. I had good money. I just finished my PhD, and I was dating this lady that I liked her. She was, it was okay. And she went into the whole I don't need a man and I'm gonna be fine. I don't need none of that, right? So I was like, okay, so if I left, it wouldn't bother you. She's like, well, you ain't gonna get no drama out of me. She did the whole tough guy routine, like, well, I'm gonna be fine. I was like, okay, well, I met somebody else and Brenda got a big old butt, so I'm about to go over here, right? And the reason I felt okay leaving was because I was like, okay, so you cool, I'm out, right? But if she had said, I love you, I need you, I really want you here, then I would have said, okay, I have a job to do. I believe men want to have a purpose. They like to know, okay, this is my job to be there for you, provide, protect. You value me. Therefore, I'm going to stay even though my flesh wants me to leave. But if you tell somebody, I'm sorry, I don't know about most men, but I know a lot of men I know, if you tell them you don't need them, then they're going to go do something else because taking care of a family is hard. Raising kids is hard. Commitment is hard. So that's a terrible message to give young women. It puts them in a horrible position.
Angel Reese, right?
Yeah.
She was in a conversation with Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
And Michelle Obama was pushing the same independent stuff. And I get it from a certain perspective. Like my mom was very intentional with me. There's certain things that she taught me. She taught me how to cook. She taught me how to, wash my own wares, iron my own clothes, do all that stuff. Because her thing is like, I don't want you, to Boyce's point, I don't want you falling down and having to beg some woman to cook you 3 square meals a day. And that's fine. But there's no place sort of in the broader culture, and certainly not in black culture, where anybody is telling young men to repeat this mantra that you don't need a woman. Nobody ever says that. But you get that that's a constant drumbeat. And Jason, you put it at about 60 years old, and I would say yes, that's when the second wave feminist movement got kicked off. And the thing that contributed is for the last 60 years, young women have been told that femininity is weak, that masculinity is toxic in men but empowering in women, that marriage is oppressive, that the home is a prison, and that children are a burden. And that whole children are a burden thing is why the abortion numbers in our community are off the charts. But this is a constant thing. And this goes back to something that Shemeka was saying, which is we don't have elders. We have people in our families who are getting older. But the word elder tends to connote wisdom. Because when you've gone through things, even if you've suffered the bumps and bruises, you can say, look, I went through this. Don't do what I did. So I'm going to give you advice so that you avoid the pitfalls. But what we have is a bunch of old people who are in the pit, welcoming all the young people into the pit with them. And sometimes that even takes the form of the old people competing, older women competing with younger women for the same men. So yes, this whole I don't need a man stuff is toxic. And it goes from I don't need a man to I don't want a man. And when you are a young boy being raised in that environment, your grandmother said I don't need a man. Your mama said I don't want a man. We shouldn't be surprised when the young boy grows up and says I don't even want to be a man. And that's a completely different track. But we've been pushing this message and accepting this message without any sort of pushback, as I said, for the better part of about 60 years.
Dre, I want to send you a different direction if you don't mind. Or,
Sure.
I want to send you. Michael Thompson, Klay Thompson's father. I don't know him well or really at all, but I know he's someone that likes our show, likes the point of view that we express. Steve Kim and Michael Thompson's dad are good friends and see each other often. And Michael Thompson loves his son, and I'm poured a lot of good things into his son, Klay. But the one question I have is, and again, you get Klay's age, you got the money that Klay has, your parents can only do so much. But I really, if Klay were my son, what are we doing, man? You're 6'6", you're really good looking, you got hundreds of millions of dollars. You're dating a woman called Megan Thee Stallion. She an uncastrated horse. She brags about banging any and everybody. Presents herself as a whore. Klay, you've had the best of everything. I've given you the best of everything. I'm a former professional athlete. I gave you the best of everything. Why don't you want the best of everything in a woman? Why would you take someone who calls himself a horse, has been banged by every rapper that you can think of, and pretends to be a whore or is a whore? It just seems odd that Klay or any of these athletes that have the whole buffet open to them would say, yeah, that woman that calls herself an uncastrated horse and who is a whore, that's who I'm going to couple up with. Seems odd to me.
Well, first of all, Jason, is Megan Thee Stallion. She's not the Stallion, the Stallion, just for the record. And secondly, it's the same reason that when a person is hungry, they reach for a Snickers bar rather than some celery sticks. It's faster. It's the instant gratification of it. It's also maybe just the rush of, hey, look at this woman I have with me. She's known and I'm known. So this is going to draw a lot of attention. It's going to draw the cameras. Maybe that drew Klay in. I don't know anything about Klay Thompson. I haven't heard him really, rarely even heard the guy talk. But when you have access, like he does, to obviously celebrity women, he's in the celebrity space. He may jump into that simply because this is the bubble that he's in. I mean, it's known that celebrities tend to date other celebrities because they, on some level, understand each other's lives. Maybe there's an understanding as what this relationship is going to be, how long it's going to last, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And again, Klay hasn't admitted to doing anything wrong in this relationship, at least as of now, and maybe he'll never even speak on it. So, and also, you mentioned Klay Thompson's dad. Klay Thompson's dad, he played back in the 80s. The money in the NBA was nothing like what it is now. So Klay Thompson, his son, has earned a lot more multiples of money than his father did, regardless of their skill set, just because of the timelines in which they played. So how much can a dad say to a son when his son is in his mid to upper 30s? He's earned maybe $100 million more than you at the same job and is 100 times more popular than you ever were. Would you listen to that dad who was trying to tell you something? I'm not sure how much I would.
It would be a struggle. I struggled to listen to my dad, but my dad proved to be right on virtually everything. And so it took some time, but over time I did figure out like my dad was right.
I agree, possibly. Now, how do we know if Klay Thompson's dad is even offering him any feedback or guidance here? Maybe he thought it was going to work out.
Yes, I'm. And look, and on paper, I could see how people would say, "Hey, this is the black version of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce," and maybe that's all it is. It is the hip hop version of that, of Taylor Swift, and for Travis Kelce, it raised his popularity. It's probably made him a bunch of money. It's made him and his brother great podcasts. Hell, it's elevated his brother Jason to some degree. And so maybe it's just a business deal. But for me, and Delano, you got more experience at marriage, far more. How long you been married, Delano?
July will be 14 years.
Yeah, you got 14 years more experience being married than me. So let me ask you the question of just like, I don't even, if I had Klay's wealth and popularity, I'm not looking for a co-star. I'm not looking for a co-leader. I'm looking up for a backup singer. It's like, I'm Michael Jackson. You get behind me and dance and ooh. But you don't ever grab the microphone. You don't ever, you're just, and maybe I'm an idiot, but literally that my fantasy in Klay's position would be some woman that no one ever saw, no one ever heard from, because I got the con. I'm the captain of this ship. I don't want a co-captain. Maybe I'm wrong.
So I think Klay is in a different spot than the vast majority of men, because if Klay went for that type of woman, Jason, the response of social media, if their relationship was moving towards marriage, would be, oh, you better make sure your prenup is tight, right? She only wants you for your money. She's a gold digger. Now, the reason going with, a fellow athlete, or more so an entertainer, seems to make sense to some people on paper is because you could say, well, at least she's not dating him purely for his resources, because even if she doesn't have his money, she has plenty of her own money. But again, that presents certain challenges that you just articulated. I think the two things at play here. One is that the typical life script for the American man and woman is very much different than it was in the 1980s. So the median age at first marriage in 1980 was about 24 for a man, about 22 for a woman, right? Most of our parents and grandparents were not getting married at 37, 38, 40, 45 years old. They got married young when nobody had anything, and they built a life together on the foundation of marriage. That's called the cornerstone model of marriage. What you have today is average age of first marriage is 31 for a man, 28 for a woman. Obviously, that means that some people are doing it later. And this happens after people have accomplished a number of personal and professional goals. That's the capstone version. Now, that means that you're coming into the relationship with your own stuff. This is how you get women who will say, I'm not changing my name for my husband. I've written, 4 essays under this name. Or this name is giving me power and prestige. So when that happens, you just have different relationship dynamics. And yes, you may be long on resources, but it's harder to bend 2 oak trees than it is 2 saplings. So that presents challenges. But I think the other thing that's at play, and I would again attribute this to some degree to the impact of the consequence of feminism, is that most men don't know how to pick a good woman. Sometimes because your father can pick one. So your father can't give you advice. And even if he does give you good advice, and it's not just Klay, we could put Cam Newton in the same situation. His is worse because he got a bunch of kids, that are involved in it. But many men, particularly if they are disconnected from some type of serious faith commitment, and I say this as a Christian, if it was not for my Christian faith, I wouldn't be looking for a Proverbs 31 woman. I'd be looking for whatever was hot and shiny and flashy, at least for a good time, even if it's not for a long time, for a good time. And I think that's probably where Klay is. But if you don't know how to pick a good woman, and your idea of a good woman is she sexually available, then you're going to run into these situations. And we should ask ourselves an honest question. Do you think the average guy, not even Klay, but let's say a guy who's making good money, he's a carpenter, he's a bus driver, he's an engineer, he's a lawyer, and he's presented with a woman who is modest, right? Dresses modestly, stylishly, but modestly. She has a quiet spirit. That doesn't mean she doesn't speak her mind, but she has a quiet spirit. She's not argumentative. She's not brash. And she tells him, my dream in the next 5 years is to be a stay-at-home mom and to homeschool our children and so on and so forth. If he has that one option and then he has another gal and she's more the baddie archetype, right? You question whether or not it's a BBL, but it's close enough where you say, well, maybe, I don't know. And she's out in the club all the time, and she posts provocative. Cheyenne Bryant. So let's say you have one woman who's modest, and then you have the other is more of the Dr. Bryant archetype. Which one is the average guy gonna choose? So it's not just that the women have changed; it's that both parties have changed, and now, again, many men, if left to their own desires, cannot pick a quality woman, and that's why we're having some of these troubles.
Yes.
Boys,
so many
Listen, can I
people-
pop in real quick?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Boyce hop in
go.
because he's got to go, and then Shemeka, I'll let you have the final thought. Go ahead, Boyce.
Yeah. Sorry, Shemeka. I didn't mean to. I have this meeting, but I loved everything that was said here, and I think that there's so much. What I like is I like it when Black folks can have a diversity of perspectives to choose from. I think our young people, they have different preferences in life, and when they're hearing one side of the debate and not the other side, they end up boxed in, and you end up with a lot of people that are very unhappy with the way their lives have turned out because they only heard one side of a conversation, because they say, oh, if you're a Christian, we shouldn't listen to you, or if you are a Black man, we shouldn't listen to you, or all this other nonsense that exists. And one point I'll say is, when I look at that particular relationship with Klay and Megan, I can understand exactly why he was attracted to her. I mean, let's just be clear. Megan Thee Stallion, she's gorgeous, she's very talented, and maybe the fame and power is appealing for some people. I give her credit for all of that. But here's one of the things that would concern me, and if I'm talking to him and I'm Clay's dad, is I wouldn't judge the decision. I would say, yes, and I know exactly why why that type of woman is of interest to you. But I would also sort of mention the fact that when you look at relationships and what people want, there's the dopamine driven attraction that people have. And I wrote a book years ago when I was teaching at Syracuse called Financial Lovemaking. And in that book, to write that book, I had to research what makes people attracted to each other. And that's when I read all about what the dopamine chemicals do. And it gets you real excited about somebody for about 6 to 9 months. After 6 to 9 months, you start to get distracted. If you don't have any foundation there that makes you want to hang out with that person after you finish sleeping with them, then you get bored. You start looking around. It's like a little kid that chews a piece of gum until the sugar runs out, and then you spit it out and you get a new piece of gum. And I don't know if the young ladies are learning this because they're watching Megan, they're watching Cardi, and they're leading with sex first. It's boom, boom, boom. And what it is to me is it's like starting a bonfire, but you're using nothing but paper. That thing's gonna burn real bright for a very short period of time because it ain't got no damn wood. So I think in general, what I would probably say to Clay is, okay, you got the paper relationships, and then you got the wood. And son, all of us have an interest in the paper. I get it, but at some point you got to turn to the wood. And for all we know, maybe that was Clay's intention all along. Well, somehow, I don't know who in the world thought that they were dating because they both wanted to get married. Maybe Clay was just wanting to have an experience. That happens in relationships. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you guys for having me. I learned a lot today.
Thank you, boys. Shemeka, you got a thought here?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think a lot of people, and this kind of ties into what Boyce was saying, a lot of men and women nowadays don't understand what marriage is, don't understand the purpose of marriage, which is why you hear so much just the surface things. Oh, a man would say, I can hire a maid or I can hire a chef. They have no idea what a wife actually is and what she can add or, what type of value she can bring to his life. And the same with women. They're thinking, oh, well, if I have money, I no longer need a man because the only thing they're looking for a man to do is kind of buy them things. Once we start getting back to traditional values and teaching people what marriage actually is and the purpose, maybe then they will go out looking for a husband or, trying to be a wife. We just don't have that nowadays. There are a lot of women you see who have all of these stipulations like, I'm not cooking unless he's my husband. Well, you're sleeping with him and he's not your husband. So it's like they're just so confused. And it's frustrating because a man that finds a wife finds a good thing and obtain favor from the Lord. You should already be a wife, hold that sex, but you should already be carrying yourself as a wife. How many rolls of toilet paper do you have right now in your closet? You only have one. It may run out. You're not a wife. There's so many things that women need to be working on, and unfortunately, all they're working on is the physical aspect of it. So if you put your behind out there and your behind is the best thing about you, that's all you're going to attract is a man that's just interested in your behind.
Dre, I'll give you the final thought, and then we're out of here.
Well, I will say to my credit, Jason, last summer when this relationship started, I called it at 6 months. I was off by 3 months. As far as this, the whole thing in general, Kevin Samuels, I referenced earlier, he would have women on his show and he would always ask them a question. Are you a wife? And many of the women couldn't answer the question because they didn't even know what it meant. And what's been talked about by everybody on the panel here is this woman a wife? Do you want this woman raising your children? Do you want this woman coming around your highest level professional contacts who are going to judge you based on a woman that you have on your arm? Is this a woman who you could spend time with and get value from in a conversation if you are not in bed? And I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up with two parents at home. I had a mother who was a strong figure in the house. I could easily discern. I know, okay, this one is going to be temporary. This woman is not going to be my wife, but it'll last for a month or two. I know 6 months for some people. 6 months is a long time with someone who there's nothing in common besides what's in the bedroom. But I know when I'm talking to a potential wife and when I'm talking to a fun thing, a weekend girl. And the reason why I mentioned earlier that you can't call either of these people high values because you don't bring a weekend girl around your highest level professional context. You don't hold hands with her and you don't bring her around your family. So this is why I said what I said. And I knew this relationship wasn't going to last because neither of these people doesn't look like they're dating based on any type of real values. Good thing is, I don't know who said it. At least they didn't bring kids into it.
Thank you, guys. Great job. I got to keep it moving. I got to get Steve Kim. He's probably upset with me. Before we get to Steve Kim, I want to remind you all of Blaze TV offering and an opportunity for you to get a discount subscription to everything we're doing at Blaze TV. They've got their continuing series about uncovering what the malfeasance, the corruption of the whole COVID epidemic, their latest FauciCoverup.com/fearless. You go to FauciCoverup.com/fearless. Use the promo code LabLeak for $40 off your full subscription. LabLeak is another one of these exposés on everything that went wrong during COVID. The series has been phenomenal. This is episode 6. It's available right now on Blaze TV. Not only do you get the full series and access to everything Blaze TV has to offer, this is one of the best ways to support the work that we do here at Blaze Media. So head to FauciCoverup.com/fearless. Great look into the corruption, into the COVID deal. Blaze has been all over it. Please subscribe today. When we come back, Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell. I don't cape up for anybody, even Nick Khan. It doesn't matter how powerful you are in sports. If I disagree, I will disagree, and I'll make that disagreement known. I'm not here to kiss Nick Khan's rear end, but Nick Khan is the perfect person to run all of college sports. Everybody's been looking for a solution. Oh, is it Nick Saban? Is it this person? Is it that person? Man, this is a really complex problem, and there doesn't appear to be any simple solution. Well, yes, there is. His name is Nick Khan, and he just revealed himself to everybody with a brain. And perhaps Eric Schmidt and Donald Trump have long known this, or have known this for a while. They've been looking for a silver bullet, and they found it in Nick Khan. And it is a brilliant choice because Nick Khan is a brilliant man. Perhaps, and I thought about it a lot this morning, he is the smartest man that I've ever met in the world of sports.
These words are our religion, our regrets and our decisions. We all want to go to heaven with freedom. It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
Steve, welcome back to the show. Feel free to pass on this question. I don't want to get in the way of your friendship with Michael Thompson, but do you have a take here on Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson?
I do. And by the way, it's been made very clear, if you're ever in LA and you do not show up to one of our dinners, Michael Thompson and Phil Traney, I think they might disown me. So I just want to make that clear. Now, fascinating discussion. Really enjoyed it. But here's the reality in terms of the dynamics of this whole thing. There's several ways we could take this. Number one, there are probably more women that look at Klay Thompson or any NBA athlete as a suitable partner for life in terms of being a husband and a spouse, right? The reality is, with Megan Thee Stallion, I think a lot of men look at her as a good time, very good time, but not a long time. So there's a dynamic there. Also, you guys brought this up in terms of having two celebrities in a relationship. Everyone always points to maybe the most famous one in American pop culture with Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio. It was very volatile. They had issues. I'm reading a book by Seth Wickersham about the journey of the American quarterback. Really enjoying it. I'm almost done. A lot of the book deals with Bob Waterfield, who's one of the first iconic quarterbacks in history, and he was with the Hollywood starlet that was very famous, Jane Mansfield. That was an incredibly volatile relationship that ended up in divorce, and they were married. I think everyone involved that was observing Klay and Megan, I'm completely in alignment with Dre. That thing was not going to last. We all knew what this was. This was a temporary situation. And I do agree with those people that think Megan looked at the Thompsons as like, that's my entree into respectability. Klay looked at this as a season of my life, and now it's over. Because you know what they say, and I don't want to be harsh about it, but you can't turn them into a housewife.
Yeah, it's really hard to turn a horse into a housewife. That is true. All right, Steve, I'm going to move on to Brendan Sorsby and his gambling addiction and the damage it's done to Texas Tech's football season and just the overall credibility of college sports and just the gambling influence in sports. We've mainstreamed it. We've made it a part of what we do, and it's connected. It's like peanut butter and jelly now with sports. But there is a downside, and the integrity of college sports, the temptation we've put in front of athletes, guys making high six figures, low seven figures, mid seven figures money. You go from, hey, you used to pay a $20 parlay in my day in college, and we didn't even do that. I never gambled when I was in college other than shooting craps. Never bet on a game or whatever, but you turn small stakes gamblers into really hardcore addictive gamblers with a lot of money to lose and a lot of incentive perhaps to do questionable things. Your take here on Brendan Sorsby and the fallout from him going to gambling rehab.
Well, here's the issue, and I get when people say it's a hypocrisy that all of the major sports and even college sports is now lined with all these apps and these betting companies. I get it. But however, we have to keep this in mind. And I've said this for at least 3-4 years, and I've said it to you and to JB and everyone else. If you are an athlete today, there is no upside in gambling. None. I wouldn't do it in any form or fashion. I wouldn't even do a betting pool for the March Madness. I wouldn't even put $1 down on a bingo card. I certainly wouldn't even put any money on a parlay card, which they said, remember in the bottom, for entertainment purposes only. The risk is too great because it's a gateway to other things. And I want to point this out, Jason. Everyone makes it seem like with these betting apps that, oh my God, it's caused this problem. Really? There was a betting scandal with college basketball in the 50s centered around New York City. There were no betting apps back then. Boston College, late 70s, early 80s, where there was no BetUS, whatever apps were there. Arizona State, Headache Smith, that team that I watched a lot of basketball of. There were no betting apps, but there's a common theme that happens. Human beings get greedy and they don't know when to stop. It all starts with a bet here, a bet there, then all of a sudden you're down, and someone says, hey, you want to get even? Okay, couple of turnovers here, travel. Oh, you know what? How about you make a few bucks? And you do it for a couple of games, and then it becomes like, you know what? We're still winning. It's just all about the spread. So, but all of it stems from one thing. You began gambling, and then human greed takes over. So I think it's a bit of an easy cop-out just to blame these apps.
I don't want to just blame the apps, but the apps have just made it more pervasive. There were, people now, let's say if watching a game in the 1980s, 10% of the people watching knew the spread of the game. What was the spread of the game? Now, like 50 or 60% know the spread on the game and or are interested about it. I believe in the past year, I think my mother has asked me one time, hey, what was the spread on that game? And it's like, my mother is, and again, I told her we come from a gambling family, but it was never really a sports betting It was always involved numbers and local lotteries and things like that. But I just think we've made it more pervasive that you can't turn on a game without. They used to not accept advertising from the gambling companies. Now it's everywhere, and everybody. And now because of social media, the athletes hear about like, oh man, you cost me money on the spread, or you didn't get enough number of yards. It just seems like it's far more pervasive now because of the apps.
Jason, 20 years ago, let's say turn of the century, there was still a belief we would never have a professional franchise in Las Vegas. Now we have an NFL team, an NHL team, and now the Athletics. So they're probably going to get an NBA team soon, right? When Jimmy the Greek would do his breakdowns with Brent Musburger, they would always skirt around the issue, right? They would never bring up the spread, but Jimmy would always, with the wink, would say, okay, and I think they're going to win by 4. And everyone kind of knew what the inference was. But you're right, it's a slippery slope. That's not even a slope anymore. It is what it is. But I think more young athletes, and I don't know if it's a failing of the adults. I don't know if there's enough prevention or counseling. But the letter of the law needs to be adhered to and followed. If you are an athlete, do not gamble in any form or fashion. I mean, is that really too much to ask?
No, but it's that ain't gonna fix it. Like you said, the athletes have been involved with gambling for years. There's been scandals for years. It's only going to get worse. Steve, I want to move on to Ty Simpson. Had something interesting to say about Sean McVay and pre-draft activity. They're now saying, and Ty Simpson was on an interview yesterday where he's saying that he and Sean McVay met for hours before the draft. Sean McVay before the draft said, hey, I haven't poured a lot of energy into Ty Simpson. Anyway, let's play SOT 4. Steve, you buying that? I'm
Yes.
kind of not.
What?
Yeah.
I am. JB flat out said that act of McVay, that was all about making sure that the feelings of Matt Stafford were kind of taken care of. And now the cover's been blown. But here's the way I look at it. If you're going to play for Sean McVay, you better be good on the board. You better have a cerebral outlook for the game of football. You better understand pre- and post-snap stuff. You have to be good at the X's and O's. You have to understand the game of football. And from what he said, they seem to align. And look, this is a good situation for Simpson. Putting aside that it was the 13th pick of the NFL draft with a team that was maybe 4 or 5 points away from going to the Super Bowl, and they probably would have won it, right? He's now in a position, if Matt Stafford wants to play for another couple of years, guess what? This scenario is a lot like Aaron Rodgers, who did not play till about his, 4th year in the National Football League?
It's a lot like Aaron Rodgers, absent Aaron Rodgers. So how is it like Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest arms in history?
Okay. I'm saying scenario. Did not say talent. It's a little different.
All right, well, it's a lot like the Aaron Rodgers scenario without Aaron Rodgers' talent. See, tell me this, and I get where JB somewhat is saying, like he's trying to sell something to Matt Stafford. But after they draft Ty Simpson, why does he need to look disappointed? Because now that everybody, it was just a gimmick, it's just a scam. How is Matt Stafford being satisfied?
Well, I don't think, look, my view is this. Stafford seems to be a pretty mature adult. They're not, look, he just won the MVP. You could still say he's the best player in football. There's things he can do in that pocket I think maybe 2 or 3 other quarterbacks can do. He has rare arm talent. He is not going to be upset by anybody.
So I'm just saying, why does Matt Stafford or why does Sean McVay have to stay in character after they draft Ty Simpson?
Well, he still has to deal with Matt, doesn't he? I mean, I look, there's still egos at play. My view is this. No one is knocking Stafford off his perch. But I think you're still dealing with human beings, and I think even Stafford, as confident as he probably is, needs to be told, hey, you're still our guy. You're still our guy.
All right, I'm going to keep it moving. Mike Vrabel is back at work again. This was the shortest indefinite leave in the history of football. He's back on Monday. Steve, my take is that means, divorce proceedings are just around the corner for Vrabel and his wife. That's the only thing that makes sense. You can't fix that big of a problem in 2 days, and the fact that he went immediately back to work means that they must have said, we've done enough here. This is over. Your thoughts?
I don't know. First of all, I don't even know counseling. I mean, Peter Schrager backed off his own report that the Patriots were communicating with Vrabel throughout day 3, and then he retracted it. He must have got an angry phone call. You would think logically, yes. Most regular couples would probably be headed for Splitsville. But financially, Vrabel's in the 1%. They have different standards. I mean, think about it, Jason. I mean, Sharon Moore. We all know what he went through. I haven't heard of a divorce. Looks like that wife is standing by him, right? It's a little different. Economics, I think, plays a large part of these decisions.
I hear you on that, but, I'm sure Vrabel's wife will be fine financially. Their kids are grown. They're 24 and 25 years old. Anyway, if you had 50-50, do you think this marriage survives? That's your prediction?
I think it's not out of the question.
Gotcha.
I really do. Who's to say they didn't have an agreement? Seriously, you know the way some of these relationships, they have boundaries, and different relationships have different rules and regs. I don't really like it. I think it's kind of funny.
The boundaries include a Spotify playlist that she's sending to Mike when they're going through a 4-game losing streak. Have you seen that story that she's putting together?
Yeah.
Playlist for, Let's Chill from Guy, little Can You Stand the Rain? Can You Stand the Rain from New Edition?
Yeah. R. Kelly. Yeah, I get it. But see, that's the thing. So you're saying that's worse than what they were doing?
Just if it's
God,
just
you know what?
if it's just sex, it's one thing. But if there's emotions involved,
but the Spotify list. Oh, now you crushed my heart. Real okay. All right.
All right. Let me keep it moving. Chris Sims, the latest casualty. He joins Tony Dungy in the dustbin of Football Night in America. Anybody going to miss Chris Sims on Football Night in America?
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I didn't even realize he was there. They have such a big cast of people. They really do. And this is my Sunday viewing experience when it comes to the National Football League. 80% of the time, from 10 a.m. Pacific till about 4:30, I'm on Red Zone. And then when those games are over and that window closes and Scott Hansen says goodbye, I generally go to NBC, but you know what I do? I turn down the volume and I tweet. So I'm just kind of looking at it as something I look up at the screen, and there's all these different. Maria Taylor's about the only one I say, oh, that's Maria Taylor. Honestly, I mean, Tony Dungy, I never really noticed. Rodney Harrison's still part of that crew, but it's not one of those shows where, like, inside the NBA with Charles Barkley and the Jet and Ernie, that you're like, all right, let's listen to what they have to say. I'll be honest with you. I only have it on to make sure that when I look up, I go, okay, there's kickoff. That's it.
Yeah, trust me. I am a kickoff guy. I avoid almost all the pregame shows to their entirety. That even if I miss kickoff, I'm good. If I tune in and it's second down, that's perfect. Second down, I missed all the bogus BS that they were trying to pump into me before. So I get it and kind of agree. This is no big deal. Steve, I got a couple more things I want to get to. This one's kind of a little bit off the beaten path, but it's getting a lot of conversation over social media. ESPN's Frank Isola, stand-in, fill-in host for Pardon the Interruption, longtime NBA connected journalist Frank Isola. I'm sure you know Frank.
Yeah.
very upset. He and Brian Scalabrine have I think it's called The Starting Lineup, or a radio show on Sirius XM. And on Mondays, they're losing an hour on Mondays. I think their show's Monday through Friday. But now on Mondays, Sirius has cut a deal with a YouTuber named Kenny Beecham. He's been around for a while. He's made a little bit of noise. But man, losing this hour on Mondays triggered Frank Isola. Let's play SOT 5.
Kenny Beecham Hour with Kenny Beecham, aptly named. God forbid we name it the Frank Isola, Brian Scalabrine Show, but we've only been doing the show here for about how many years now, Brian? 15. When you walk in first day, they're going to name a show after you. Debuting today at noon Eastern on NBA Radio Channel 86 and the SiriusXM app. And whoever did the read, and Warren wanted me to read this, Brian, he wanted me to write that Mondays just got better, which means our show, they'll be taking an hour off our show. And Warren wants me to write that Mondays just got better because now an hour of our show will be cut.
Can I just tell you one thing? Right now, you need to calm down. just trust me on this one. Just calm down. All right.
Calm down. Give me a break. Nationally, who's got a bigger name? Brian Scalabrine or Kevin Beecham? Kenny Beecham.
Kenny Beecham.
Who's got a bigger name, me or him?
Kenny Beecham.
Bull.
Frank.
He does PTI?
Don't tell me to calm
Fill
down.
in on PTI. I don't want to hear about Twitter. People buy followers.
Warren, don't just remember. I've told Frank just to go, man. Chill.
Who is he? He's taking an hour of our show. Warren wants me to write that. It just got better. That we're not going to have an hour of our show. You have a new person show up, and he preempts our show, and he gets an hour of our show, and they name the show after him.
What, you want to get him on air? You want to ask him?
Are you crazy?
Frank, perhaps overreacting, a little too thin skin there. What do you think?
Fiery Frank. Okay. It's all about the framing. Think about this, Frank, and I'm just giving you my advice, my perspective. Think about this. If they're not cutting your pay, you're working less for the same amount of money. In a way, that's kind of a raise, if you really think about it, Jason, per hour. Think about it.
Listen, I've known Frank for a long time. He's of my generation of sports writers. And so here he is getting his profile cut into, or his time slot cut into, by a YouTuber, a younger YouTuber. I get, hey, man, I've been covering the NBA. I know everybody in the NBA, and they're really giving a YouTuber an hour of my time on Mondays. I get it. I will say there is this extra layer. And Frank, I'm sorry for having to be this honest and have to say this. I'm going to apologize up front. But Frank Isola's reputation for a long time in the sports writing world is he's a do the right thing Italian. You know what I'm saying? Do the right thing. He's a do the right thing Italian. You ever see the Do the Right Thing movie? And Frank is an Italian, and he could have played in the movie Do the Right Thing. And Kenny Beecham could have been the Spike Lee character in Do the Right Thing. Do we have a picture of Kenny Beecham? Do we have anything? No. Anyway, he looks like a young Spike Lee type character. Yeah.
That would have been the scene. So you're saying that, so this new Beecham guy,
yeah,
is he Radio Raheem with the boombox as loud as can be? And they're like, oh my God, and that's what set it off, right? Is that what?
It's the Spike Lee character. Kenny's not a big guy, not an imposing guy like Radio Raheem, but black YouTuber. And I'm just keeping it real. And again, Frank, I just got to keep it real. Frank has always struck me as kind of a do the right thing type of Italian. And so there are layers, I think, to the problem. I get the frustration over some unknown YouTuber replacing you. But yeah, there's Kenny Beecham. Yeah, Spike Lee, Spike Lee and Do the Right Thing. Young, hip, black guy.
I'm just going to call him Mookie now from here on.
Yeah, there you go.
But remember, though, out of the two brothers the older brother was a lot more harsh in his worldview towards minorities, and the younger brother seemed to be a little more friendly. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
He's
just stand on.
Tarantino.
I'm not going to call him the younger brother or the older brother, but I'm going to say he could have played a role and do the right thing. He would have fit right in. Or you know, I've been rewatching the Sopranos. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not accusing. I wouldn't be. But Mulian, I don't think that'll be the first time Frank has ever heard the Mulians. If you know the Sopranos, you know what I'm talking about. Let me move on before I irritate Frank even more. Finally, I've been wanting to ask you this for a couple of days, I think.
Yeah.
Dan Patrick calls out Diego Pavia for his lack of professionalism and says that a line in the sand, the NFL made it very clear that they're only going to put up with so much. Anyway, let's play the clip.
Diego Pavia was a Heisman Trophy finalist. He did not get drafted. Now, there's a few reasons why. He was very, very good in the SEC. That should stand out, and that should make you draft eligible. You should get drafted just based off what you did. You did it for Vandy in the SEC. You know, you can have personality at other positions. It can be absorbed, it can be embraced, but not a backup quarterback, because quarterback is evaluated differently. You can be an elite talent and get away with that. Wide receiver, you can be an elite talent and get away with that, or a great defensive, lineman, edge rusher. The message from the NFL is really clear. If you're not a can't-miss prospect, professionalism is not just valued, it's required. And that hurt Diego Pavia.
Is that the message? Can't miss prospect? I don't know.
Pavia. You know what's interesting? I was thinking about this because when you put it up on the rundown, if you would have flipped the personalities of Fernando Mendoza and Diego Pavia, I think it would have served both guys well, because Mendoza has this goody two-shoes reputation. Some held that against him. And if he would have showed that personality, I think people would have said, wow, that's the type of guy you want leading. That is a franchise builder. And then if Pavia would have acted like Mendoza, that's exactly what Dan Patrick is talking about. There's a nice young man. He's going to do all the right things. He says all the right things. He's never going to be a distraction. But Jason, I'm not surprised by this. He's 5'9". And here's the issue, because I kept saying, well, maybe he plays like a Taysom Hill type of role. And someone said, Steve, here's the problem. He's a lot smaller and slower. So that option doesn't really exist. And Jason, if you go back, pre-Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, during the Mike Leach era, they had an assembly line of record-setting quarterbacks, from Cliff Kingsbury, Seth Doge, B.J. Simons, Graham Harrell. But in that particular era of football, no one was really playing the spread. It was thought of as a gimmick offense that did not translate. And guess what? None of those guys really got drafted. None of those guys really had long NFL careers, because the game did not fit, right? So in a lot of ways, Pavia kind of fell victim to that. Then you had the measurables weren't that good. And then the way he came off in the draft process and not hiring an agent, Jason, none of that was going to play well or work out well for Pavia.
If the guy was 6'3", none of this would have mattered.
Ran a 4.4.
So, I don't think they've drawn any line in the sand here or sent any message, because, again, hell, if he were a 5'9", if he were Kyler Murray, with that attitude, which Kyler Murray had a bit of that attitude, the NFL drafted Kyler Murray regardless at the very top of the draft. And so they don't care about the behavior of these athletes. They care about the measurables. And, particularly if you're a black athlete, I think they love the misbehavior. It gets celebrated. But I'll save that for another day. Looks like you got a final thought?
Yeah, well, Jason, I disagree slightly, though. I do think it matters with quarterbacks. You're right. If you're a defensive end, linebacker, cornerback, you could be flashy. You could do all. Quarterback, I want you nice, boring, and suburban. Yeah, exactly. I want you to be first in, last out. That's it. That's the way I look at it.
Jamarcus Russell.
And look what happened to him. And don't call him a bust.
They went at the top of the draft.
I agree. And look how it worked out. Look how it worked out.
Thank you, Steve. Gotta let you go. I promised my young guys here, we've forgotten about the peanut gallery and letting these guys chime in from time to time about what's transpired on the show. Gentlemen, we'll start with Luke here. Your thoughts on today's show?
First thing, a couple things. My big takeaway from what Delano said was he was talking about Le'Veon Bell and Future now share a baby mama or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Future is a problem and has been a problem for a long time. And I really like his music. I know I'm not supposed to say that. He steals women from everybody. He dated Lori Harvey, who's Steve Harvey's daughter, when he's not, Steve Harvey. He don't want to be involved with that.
Yeah.
Then he has an affair with Scottie Pippen's wife, goes on his self-titled album, the first song on that album, he says, "She sucked my D, come home, bet she kissed you." Future's a problem.
Yeah, that's a real problem. That's a real problem. Justin, any thoughts on today's show?
Yeah, I think, listen, the whole Megan and Klay thing, we just got to look at it how it was. Klay was just trying to hit. Sometimes guys they go the long route. They may stay around for a little bit, but at the end of the day, they trying to hit. And NBA players are known players. So
trying to hit. Do you really have to try to hit Megan Thee Stallion, or you just need to be accessible at the right time? But I hear you. He was just doing it for a little fun. I think someone said for the experience of
that's accurate.
Megan Thee Stallion, I knocked that off. You can be able to brag, but at some point we got to grow out of that and understand the stupidity and the immaturity of that. It's when you think about Megan Thee Stallion, Megan the horse, just think a lot of people have had that experience. And why would you want to have the same experience as everyone else, particularly if you just look at the STD stats? But anyway, I'll leave that alone. Again, let me stop before I get myself into more trouble. Peyton, you have a final thought here?
Well, to me, I think this story comes off as like it's
Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, well, It's exceeded expectations in terms of how long it was going to like. I think, to me, it ending after 9 months is an improvement from what the
success story
in some ways.
No, I think Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have exceeded expectations and set a new standard for these type of celebrity relationships. Aren't they engaged, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce?
Some question of the legitimacy of if it's just a psyop or not.
Football players and NBA players are different. They have different mentalities.
Football players and NBA players have different mentalities. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
What's the
NBA
difference?
players don't care. They make way more money than football players. They'll flaunt it anyway. They can get literally anyone they want. Football players are a little bit more grounded. No one knows who they are at the end of the day. They wear helmets. So it's not like they're not as prominent as NBA players. There's an NBA player. I say this because there's an NBA player, Jalen Green.
Yeah.
On the Suns. He's dating a 32-year-old. He's 24. He's dating like a 32-year-old. Has a kid with him. These women, they just want the access to him because they're big, they got money and all that. And the guys, they don't care. They can knock them off and move on.
The culture around the sport, it's
a lot more travel in the NBA.
Yeah, and there's you got from Wilt Chamberlain to Magic Johnson
to Joe Namath. Football has the same thing.
It does. But the helmets being part of it does take away from, so Justin's point, takes away from.
Well, they should put helmets on their private parts as well. Try that, gentlemen. Try that. If you're going to make it, because look, I'm sitting here thinking about how hypocritical I am. The biggest crush in the world on Brittany Renner, and I'm sitting here cracking these jokes. Let me shut up.
Friend of the show, Brittany Renner.
Yeah. Friend. Anyway. Stay tuned. I'll be on the Harmony channel in 5 minutes. With Virgil and Anthony. I'm going to give these guys a chance to scold me and or correct me. I had an incident over social media yesterday we'll get their take on it. I'll explain it on the Harmony channel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you back here on Fearless tomorrow.